Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the high-stakes world of low-voltage switchgears and the frankly extreme IEC 61439 standard tests that they absolutely have to survive to keep our buildings safe. I mean, we are talking about the critical hardware sitting at the very heart of the electrical grid. The sheer amount of power these assemblies handle is just staggering. So, to ensure they don't catastrophically fail on us, they go through a punishing certification process. Let's get right into it. Our bootcamp agenda for today looks like this. First, the Switchgear bootcamp. Then, Trial 1, Beating Heat. After that, Trial 2, Electrical Assault. And finally, Trial 3, the Physical Gauntlet. Kicking things off with Section 1, the Switchgear bootcamp, setting the stakes. Okay, let's start with the basics. Low-voltage switchgear and control gear assemblies operate at voltages up to 1,000 volts AC. These are positioned at the very origin of an electrical installation. Think of the main switchboards in a transformer area, or those massive main distribution boards hidden away in the technical room of a skyscraper. They manage the massive influx of power entering commercial buildings and substations. And trust me, when something goes wrong here, the consequences are completely disastrous. Now, knowing that these custom assemblies control so much destructive power, you might be wondering, why not just test every single custom unit built before it actually gets installed in a building? I mean, it seems like common sense, right? Well, the reality is that pushing every single custom layout to the point of destruction it's way too costly and time-consuming. These are highly complex, often entirely bespoke systems. So instead of testing every tiny variation, manufacturers put representative standard assemblies through these rigorous type tests. By definition, a standard assembly only contains equipment layouts and wiring configurations that have already undergone and, crucially, survived these specific type tests. Moving right along to Section 2, Trial 1, Beating Heat and How We Prevent Premature Aging. Temperature rise verification is notoriously time-consuming, so manufacturers actually have 3 options to tackle it. Option 1 is basically the blunt force approach. Every single outgoing circuit is loaded to its maximum rated current at the exact same time. That's a unity diversity factor. It's an incredibly onerous test, pushing the system way harder than most real-world applications ever will. Option 2 is a real-world simulation where circuits are loaded based on a rated diversity factor, which is a lot closer to normal loading conditions. And finally, Option 3, well, it's kind of like testing Lego bricks. For flexible, modular systems, the horizontal bus bars, vertical bus bars, and individual units are tested separately first, and then the whole assembly is verified. This totally avoids having to test every single possible custom arrangement. So during these tests, once the assembly is loaded up and the current is flowing, it takes about 8 solid hours for the internal conditions to stabilize. And the strict, absolute limit here? The average temperature rise of the air inside the assembly must stay strictly below 30 Kelvin. And just a quick note, we use Kelvin here to measure the specific temperature rise from the ambient baseline. This makes sure that even under maximum operating conditions, we aren't literally melting the internal environment. Testers use thermocouples to monitor all the critical areas and verify specific limits. Now, while the internal air is capped at that 30 Kelvin rise, the bus bars are actually permitted a 65 Kelvin rise, and cable terminals can get up to a 70 Kelvin rise. But here's the catch. The current ratings for these components are only valid if the temperature surrounding them stays strictly within these exact boundaries. Okay, on to Section 3, Trial 2, Electrical Assault, High Voltage, and Fault Currents. Let me tell you, this trial is an absolute barrage. The assembly is basically blasted with 50 Hz dielectric tests just to check baseline insulation performance. Then comes the crazy part, simulated lightning strikes. We're talking massive impulse voltage waves. But it's not even just about the voltage, it's about the sheer physical force generated by electricity. The short circuit tests ensure that the bus bars, their supports, and the braking devices don't just warp or shatter under the immense thermal and electrodynamic stress of a massive fault. The whole testing philosophy here dictates one absolutely crucial role. The continuity of the protective circuit is a decisive factor for safety. Basically, no matter the electrical violence experienced during a short circuit, overall safety hinges entirely on this protective grounding circuit holding together. If it fails, well, the entire metal enclosure could become lethally electrified. To physically prove that continuity, testers run a highly specific 25 amp test current directly between the main connecting terminal of the protective conductors and all the exposed conductive parts of the assembly. They even simulate the incredibly high fault current that would flood the system if a live conductor accidentally detached and smacked into the metal frame. These protective circuits are sized and tested specifically to take this maximum thermal stress without breaking. Which brings us to Section 4, Trial 3, Physical Gauntlet, Measuring Distances and Endurance. As we all know, electricity loves to jump across gaps if you give it the chance. So, using strict IEC guidelines, testers meticulously measure clearances, which is the shortest distance in the air, and creepage distances, which is the shortest distance along the surface of an insulating material. They have to carefully distinguish between the space separating live parts with different polarities and the space between those live parts and exposed metal structural parts. Honestly, every single millimeter matters here to prevent a catastrophic arc flash. Now, you might think the big, expensive circuit breakers are the most vulnerable parts of the whole system, right? Actually, experience shows us the real danger lies somewhere else entirely. The main components are usually totally fine. The true risk is the wiring itself. Bad connectors, poorly executed bolted joints, or improperly placed metal supports can silently destroy those carefully planned insulation values. That's exactly why connections in bundles of conductors are so meticulously checked during these type tests. And to guarantee long-term physical survival, it's not just about checking the wires. The standard actually demands 50 grueling operating cycles on things like draw-out racks and faceplate fixings. These are heavy, high-tension mechanical parts we're talking about. Operating them 50 times in a testing environment simply verifies that their correct mechanical operation won't degrade under the normal wear and tear of a facility's routine maintenance schedule. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to consider the massive silent electrical power flowing invisibly behind the walls of your building right now. Without this standardized IEC 61439 boot camp, ensuring the gear can beat the heat, survive lightning and short circuits, and endure brutal physical wear, would it actually survive? Understanding these extreme tests definitely gives us a profound appreciation for the invisible engineering that keeps our modern world safely illuminated. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive.